Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to be making Italian-style meatballs. I will be making homemade meatballs that are going to be cooked in a delicious homemade pasta sauce. Okay, so here I have 1 pound of ground beef. This is 80/20, and I have half a pound or 8 ounces of sweet Italian sausage. You could use spicy, you could use ground pork, or you can just use 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start adding ingredients. Here I have 2 cloves of minced garlic, around 2 tablespoons of lightly dried parsley. If you have fresh, that works. I have just 1/4 of a small onion that I've diced, 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. I've got a 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs. You could use maybe just a couple of slices of bread to, crumble it up or food process it to break it down. You could also use saltine crackers. I do that from time to time. I'm also going to add 1 large egg that I've beaten, and I'm going to add some salt and some pepper. Remember, Parmesan cheese is salty, so maybe start with a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, something like that. And I'm adding a 1/3 cup of milk. With your hands, combine. So I'm kind of folding as I mix because you don't want to overwork your ground meat. It'll make a tough meatball, so just sort of fold and combine. Okay, so this is going to be very tacky and sticky, so I'm going to wash my hands and I'm going to use just a small scoop to sort of start my meatballs, and I'm going to place them on a lined baking sheet. Okay, so here I have my little scooper. This is this like over an inch, maybe 1.5 inches? And I've oiled it. That'll sort of help release the meatball a lot easier. And I'm just going to be placing them on this baking sheet. Okay, so I managed to get 30 meatballs. So for today, I'm only going to make these 15 because it's only for my son, myself, and my husband. But I am going to freeze these. So what I'm going to do with these is cover it with cling wrap, place it in my freezer, and let them freeze individually. Then I can just add them to a storage baggie so they don't stick together, and store them in the freezer for later use. So that's what I'll be doing with this pan. Okay, so now I'm going to cook these. I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I have it on a medium-high heat. I want to get some good brown and searing on these meatballs. And they are not going to cook all the way through. We're just strictly browning them. I'm going to let them brown for about 2 minutes on each side. If you're working with stainless steel, you don't want to move them. You want to make sure that they form a crust, and it should release easily from your pan. So if I were to try to move them right now, it would be stuck onto the pan. So give it a minute or so. There we go. I'm sort of going to do these on maybe like 3 sides. You kind of want to brown them on all sides, but since it's round, it's not going to be perfect. There we go. So here are my browned meatballs. Okay, so I thought I was filming, but I wasn't. But to the same pan, I've lowered the heat to a medium-low heat. I added 2 tablespoons of diced onion and 3 cloves of minced garlic. And in this same pan, I am sauteing my onion and garlic. This is going to be the base for my sauce. So I'm going to be using 2 cans of San Marzano tomatoes that I've crushed. Basically, I added it to a bowl. I started crushing with my hands, clean hands that is. You could also use a food mill, but I find something therapeutic when I crush tomatoes through my hands. So I also added 8 fluid ounces of water to one of the cans to get some of that residual tomato sauce left in the can. So that's what I'm going to use to deglaze my pan here. I'm going to start scraping up any fond or these bits that are left at the bottom of the pan. Okay, so I've managed to scrape up all the fond. I'm going to make sure this is on a medium heat. I don't want it too hot. Now I'm going to add my 2 cans of crushed San Marzano tomatoes. Right in there. So I have this all mixed in. It smells so good with that garlic, onion, and these tomatoes. So now I'm just going to salt to taste. Maybe a ½ teaspoon of salt to start with. Some cracked black pepper. You can also add some red pepper flakes if you want a little heat. Once your pasta sauce comes up to a gentle simmer, you'll want to let it continue cooking and just gently simmer for about 15 minutes. Basically, a lot of the liquid, I want the tomato flavor to intensify. And I do know that some people like to add, a pinch of sugar. But these San Marzano tomatoes kind of are naturally sweet. And they have, low acidity. They are mild in that zesty tomato flavor. But as you simmer and intensify the flavor, it just really brings out the natural sweetness in the tomato. So you can definitely season your pasta sauce the way you like. But for some reason, sometimes simple is best. So just like this, I'm going to let it gently simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. And before I forget, I grabbed some fresh basil from my garden. So I'm going to just add it right on top. And that'll definitely add some aromatic flavor to this sauce. And I'm going to stir it here and there throughout the 15-minute cook time or simmer time. And I am working with a medium to medium-low heat, nothing on high, because tomatoes naturally do have sugar, so it will burn if it gets too high. And like I said earlier, the amount of pasta sauce that I'm making, I think somewhere like 25 meatballs, basically 30. I made 30, you can do all 30 in this pan. But I'm just trying to stretch my meals here lately, so. Okay, so my meatballs are in. I'm just sort of going to, ladle over sauce over each one, submerge them. And I am going to let this cook and simmer for around 20 minutes. And at some point, if you find that you need to cover it with a lid, make sure you vent it. So leave the lid partially open, but I'm not going to cover it. I really want my pasta sauce to reduce and intensify in flavor. So I'm just going to let it gently simmer for about 20-25 minutes. And that'll give the meatballs a chance to soak up that flavor, cook all the way through, and the pasta sauce will continue to reduce. Okay. So it has already been 20 minutes, and I actually transferred all of my meatballs and half of the sauce to a smaller pan, and the rest of the sauce I'm going to save for later use. Actually, pasta sauce is a great make-ahead dish, if you will, because the flavors really do come alive even the next day. So I'm probably going to freeze my pasta sauce or store it for later use. Okay, so let me show you what I'm going to end up doing with these meatballs. I asked them if they wanted pasta. They were like, eh. And then they wanted me to take the pan over to the table. They were going to eat it with bread, but then my son was like, how about little sandwiches? I go, great. So here I have these little 4-pack of butter rolls. These are not the Hawaiian rolls, which I guess you could use Hawaiian rolls, but these are butter rolls. So I kind of buttered the top. So what I'm going to do is just add some provolone cheese. I'm going to add 2 slices to each. I'm going to add 4 meatballs to each little piece of bread. With the sauce, it's going to be saucy. And then, I know, you guys are like, wow, that's a lot of cheese. Okay, well, maybe just add 1 on the bottom, 1 on top, but I'm going for 3. Then just top it. And I'm going to bake this in a preheated oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 to 15 minutes. You just basically want things to toast and melt. Okay, so these are nice and toasty. I'm going to brush them with some melted butter. And then just garnish with a little grated parmesan and parsley. There we go. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.